a special edition of the Comic Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace. The reason why I'm saying it's special because normally we do Fridays, but today we're making an exception. Grace has I'm gonna say a party to go to over the weekend. I won't go into any details, but she has an eventful weekend lined up, and we just decided to knock it out today. And what better way just to kind of, I would say, start the new year off right with breaking down the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer. But before we get into that, Grace, what up? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Definitely was rushing just to hop on. So apologize for the delay, guys, but we get to do this episode for you guys a day early, so super special. Overall, I'm having such a wonderful week. Super excited for this weekend, and also, obviously, it's no longer my birthday, nor is it the month of my birthday, but I have gotten so many presents like this week.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl surprised me at work and dropped off something really cool, so I just wanted to show it off. Hopefully it comes up clearish, with the
Let's see.
glare and everything. But
Boom.
boom, I am obsessed. If you guys caught our like Batman breakdown, I'm just obsessed with Zoe Kravitz, Catwoman, Selena Kyle. She is Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy when I picked that up. And also, my client dropped off like 4 presents for me today, and she says she has like one more at home, and I just can't. Like I almost started crying. So I have them in my background. I didn't get a chance to set them up all pretty, but enough that you guys can see. So hopefully I don't break them as I'm trying to display. Look at this Harley Quinn, so OG black and white
Mm-hmm.
glove, and then the Joker lollipop.
Awesome.
I'm just like, I can't. I can't. And then this here is probably my favorite Harley Quinn like adaptation.
Right.
It's by this French comic book creator. I've actually posted of him recently, so I think it's funny I get this, but it's been on my list for so long, and I'm just like so happy. So it's been a wonderful week. How have you been?
Good. Random question. So right now, is this like the official like? Because I know you had your Nook before, but it looks like you're getting comfortable where you are right now. So right now, is this like the spot for where you're going to be streaming?
I am actually really liking it because it's like this is where we usually set up for our desk. So normally I have to haul away like the boxes that I just have refused to put away from when we moved a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like usually dragging stuff and then dragging this chair in the corner. And I think I settled into this little nook like 2 weeks ago just because I was in a rush and I'm like, you know what? I don't have time to move the chair, but I ended up actually really liking it. So we're gonna slowly start making it look pretty as planned and promised for like a year. And now I get to have these as like my little addition. So I'm just like so happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, as far as how I'm doing great. And the reason being, especially right now, is just because I just rewatched the trailer and it just gets me super excited, especially just for what's to come of Kang the Conqueror. Um, and I'm ready to dive in if you're ready.
Oh, I'm so ready.
All right. So before we even dive in, did you want to? Because I can go to the share screen and show people the trailer. Or do you just want to kind of just go into a breakdown? What would you like to do?
Oh my god, let's show the trailer. That would be awesome. So yeah, let's do that. Let's
All
show the
right.
trailer. We'll
Now,
kind of discussing.
yeah. So let me pull it up. Let's see that second display. Boom. I got the desktop audio going. Perfect. And we're just gonna play it from the top. And hold on, just because the display, the display isn't displaying. Hold on. Let's see what's going on. I got you. Hold on. I'm gonna delete this. Boom. Show. Sorry, y'all. Display. And there it is.
Yay.
Okay, so just gotta shrink it down. Sorry, everybody. I know. It's me.
That's okay. This
Apologies.
balances everything out. It's fine.
But we're ready now. All right, so now I'm pressing play. And
We can help each other with that. Who are you? I'm the man who can give you the one thing you want. What's that? Time.
It can rewrite existence and shatter timelines. You cannot trust him.
I don't care who this guy is. I just lost so much. He can give us a second chance.
Let me make this easy for you. You will bring me what I need, or everything you call a life will end.
This is all my fault.
You may not want her to watch this.
We had a deal.
You thought you could win.
I don't have to win. We both just have to lose. I'm sorry, Cassie.
All right, so there that is, and just from watching that, maybe for the fourth or fifth time, I'm telling you, it's like chills. Hold on, wait, Grace. Hold on, real quick. Let's see. See your video move, but now we're good.
Okay. Well, good. Audio,
Yeah,
everything.
everything. You know, you're good. Your audio's been good since that's the first thing I check. Like
Always.
since like the way beginning, if anything is good, I just want to make sure your audio is good, no matter what.
You know what? I appreciate that. If you guys have been with us since the OG times, you know that's always been like a reoccurring thing for us. But
Right.
I mean, the trailer, I'm just as excited as you are. I think immediately something that like struck me with this trailer is that it's so different than the one we got originally. I feel like the first one gives us a more traditional view at Ant-Man,
Hmm.
kind of like what we're used to in terms of Scott Lang. It feels very familiar to the other two films. However, this one leans a lot more on a more serious tone,
It's like
which is different for this character.
it's definitely like because I don't think Scott Lang solo has ever had like an Avengers level event, and this is what I would consider that.
Oh, 100%. And I think that Kang is so intimidating in this, and we get some very emotional scenes. And I really, really love that we got that with the second trailer. Because from, talks and discussions and things we've heard from things like Comic-Con and things like that, they have suggested that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is going to be very emotional. And so I'm excited, and I feel like this trailer really promises all of that.
So before we get into the nitty gritty, I sent Grace some images as far as like some pieces from the trailer and from the original trailer. And the one picture that I kind of want to get out of the way, honestly, was it has to do with what she just said, and that's the honorable mention of Bill Murray. Okay, because we didn't get him in this trailer, we got a little bit more like she said, a serious note. So say we know that he's in this, but we have no idea in terms of the role that he's going to be playing in the quantum realm. They didn't really dive on that. This was more so like at first we got like a glimpse of Kang, but now we get more Kang. So they kind of put the comical out first, but now we're getting a little bit more serious. So I just wanted to say what's up to Bill. Shout out to Bill. Big fan. Love you. All right. Now we can move on.
Wonderful. I mean, honestly, it's exciting. I feel like whenever we get cool cameos like that, like it's a treat, you know? So
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, of course we're gonna love that.
All right, so I'm just gonna pull up because we're gonna break this this down from jump, and say with the first image that I'm gonna post, it's really just an image of Scott and Kang face to face. Now, we get this, and right now at the top of this trailer, it's almost just like there's a deal being made. Kang wants something, and somehow Scott wants something from him. I don't know what. We don't know yet. But all we know is the 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 Ant family got sucked into a portal into the quantum realm, and now I'm guessing he's talking to Kane to make his way out. Is that what you would assume?
Yeah, and just to kind of fill in a couple of those blanks, I think we do get a little bit of an understanding of what the exchange is here. And so we get a couple of things. So Kang, in that kind of like face to face, tells Scott, "You've lost a lot of time, like me." And he says as well, like later in the trailer, "You will bring me what I need." And so you can kind of see that. I think Kang is promising um some way to rewind the clock and have those 5 years back that he missed with Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so enticing for Scott, even to maybe like bend his morals a little bit, because I'm sure what Kang's asking isn't necessarily on the good side,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it makes so much sense because keep in mind, like Scott already lost like 3 years with his daughter, 4 years when he was imprisoned, and then another 5 years. I think that this is just so emotional. And I mean, I just remember the scene in Endgame when he realizes that his daughter is all grown up, and it's so heartbreaking. And so I think that that's a very enticing offer for King to offer him. And we know Scott Lang is a cat burglar. So I think, if anything, he wants Scott to steal something. What? I don't know yet. We don't know
Right,
yet.
right. So say, just with one of the first quotes that you quoted saying lost a lot of time, just all this week since the trailer dropped on the 9th, I've just been kind of perusing the internet and seeing what everybody else is saying, and I think it was New Rock Stars that mentioned that, like, when it comes down to lost a lot of time, their theory, which I actually kind of like, would be the idea of the variant He Who Remains, how he breaks down the whole multiversal battle before in Loki. Somewhere in that battle, he actually entraps this version of Kang in the quantum realm, and I actually kind of like that idea. And that could be the reason why Kang is looking to escape, being that He Who Remains is now has been taken out by Sylvie, so he's now looking for his way out to kind of take over the timelines.
Yeah, there's like there's a power grab, right? And we know this from
Mm-hmm.
like prior multiversal wars, like we learned in Loki. And so yeah, I really really like that theory. Overall, like this trailer, it just like I said, it has so many scenes that I think are so emotional. I think part of that is we do see Scott pull out a picture of a young Cassie, played by Abby Ryder Fortso. Such a cute actress, first of all. Side note, in the first film, when Scott goes to Cassie's birthday party, the dress that she has on, Ariel, I bought Ariel that same exact dress for her birthday right before.
Oh wow.
And I thought that was so cool. But yeah, we see him hold a picture of Cassie, which is the age that he remembers her at before coming back from the snap. And I think it's just beautiful because you kind of see or you're reminded of what he's lost, because it has been quite some time since we've really interacted with Ant-Man.
Yeah, like, and as far as the Ant-Man that we know, so say before the events of Infinity War, uh, Infinity War happened after Ant-Man and the Wasp, or during, because the snapping happened at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. So it happened during. So when it comes down to it, he has already been technically on house arrest, and it was a little bit strained between, I guess, I would assume, between the time that he has with his daughter. Of course, he's not as free as he wanted to be. He was limited to his house, even though he wasn't. We've seen the movie, but I mean that still plays a huge factor. And now, being he wasn't snapped away, but being trapped in the quantum realm, losing 5 more years, like after you mentioned going to jail. So far, him and his relationship with his daughter has been just super limited due to certain consequences, you know? So the idea of Kang kind of dangling young daughter versus him living out the rest of his days with the older daughter. I don't know, just because I think that should have that should make him appreciate his relationship more now that he's quote unquote technically free from, I guess, the house arrest or whatnot. And after Thanos, he should be trying to get all the time that he can with his daughter. But do you think he should be out here trying to make up and get the 5 years, or no? What are your thoughts?
I mean, like, as a parent, I feel like that would be so tempting because, to lose like 5 years of your child's life, like, I think that's a concept like I couldn't even like really imagine. And so I feel like if it was me, if I had the opportunity to say get those 5 years back, like I would, and just kind of within that realm, because a lot of this is we're discussing something that King has the ability to do,
Mm-hmm.
to mess with the timeline. And so another quote that I kind of pulled from this is from Janet Van Dyne, and she says, um, he can rewrite existence and shatter timelines. And then a little bit down in the trailer, she also says he can give us a second chance. So we know that he has this ability, which is, I mean, we already know like Kang is like a powerhouse when it comes to like the villains. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely like top tier when it comes to that, very much Thanos level, if not higher.
Definitely.
Most we can probably stay higher. And so I think that that is, I don't know. It's a cool concept to kind of grasp, and I think being that this is the first introduction of King the Conqueror, I think they did like a really good job of him being very intimidating. And I think that's something that you will greatly appreciate because, in contrast, say, for example, Ultron, who was very intimidating in the trailers, but then in the film itself, it was just a little bit more lighthearted, which I know is a comment we kind of talked about in prior episodes. So I'm just a fan of all of this, and I would definitely say like if I had the opportunity to get those 5 years back, I would.
Well, I think just in a previous conversation we had recently, just between the differences of DC and Marvel, and how DC should stick to the darker side, while Marvel does the lighter side of movies or whatnot. But I think there is a time to where uh, things should get dark. And say in the MCU, it's only happened a few times in the first saga, and that was like maybe honestly the only time I could think of is Infinity War. We didn't really have too much loss like that. So say with this trailer, it looks like Marvel is tapping in just to a darker element. Of course, is going to be Ant-Man, and he's going to have his comedic moments. But I am now kind of ready just to see, being that we've kind of wrapped up Phase 4 and we're actually kind of diving into Phase 5. This is the moment to where it starts to get a little serious, and a lot of people are out there theorizing that Ant-Man may take the L in this movie. I don't think they're going to do that, being that we're already about to take some L's in Guardians. I don't think Marvel is about to just kill off every single character and bring on new people, you know what I'm saying? So I think, if anything, Scott may, like, it looks like he has a fight ahead of him, a really tough fight, but I think for sure he's making out of it after this.
See, and I like that you brought that up also because, at the very end of the trailer, we see him and King like going at it. Like, I don't think we've ever seen Scott Lang so beat up. And I don't know if it's because we're so used to him having more of a lighthearted film and things like that, that for me, seeing him in that way, like, definitely impacted me. Um, and he also says, is like, I don't have to win, we just both have to lose. And like, that's very, it's like you said, like there's theories that he may not make it out of this. I really hope that he does. I'm kind of leaning on the side of optimism, just like you. But I kind of am loving the thing that we're going through right now, which is that we're taking what are typically like lighter films like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, and we're really making them more serious. And it's not taking away from like the tone that I think fits well with these characters and these stories, but we're just in this different stage of like of them. Like I think both of them, what the Guardians of the Galaxy, this is going to be their third film. Same thing with Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very fitting, and we know that the stakes are real. Like Infinity War established that as a precedent. Like they're not afraid to kill people off. They've done it before and they might do it again. And I think that having those stakes is what puts a lot of weight to these films, and especially for us who have been longtime appreciators and of this world, it's impactful. Like it means something, you know?
I have the image of what I quoted as the Kang stomp up, and Kang right now in this image, he has his knee all the way up to his shoulder here. You know what I'm saying? He's about to towards the end of the trailer, as far as him stomping on on Ant-Man like that. I think it may. I thought I read something to where it almost is kind of like a reference of an older Marvel movie in terms of someone saying they would stomp him like an ant, and then they brought this back. But honestly, when it comes down to if it were me and some type of insect that I don't like, usually I'm quick. I don't really have my leg all the way up here, but you look at Kang right now, his leg is bow, and I could just feel the pain from that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. And like this scene also, it's like you have it from the perspective from inside Scott's helmet, which I think is a very unique shot that they kind of gave us. So I really appreciated that. And then immediately after, you get a frame of the helmet and it's just shattered. And for me, it really, really gives like Iron Man energy, when we've seen his helmet shattered. And so it's taken a turn. It's taken a turn for sure.
I think any helmet or cowl on the ground, it's almost easy to assume that character is taking an L. Like say, from the trailer that we got of the Flash last year, and then we see the Batman like cowl just laying on the ground, and we already heard that Bruce Wayne was taking an L. I don't want to assume that Scott Lang is just because it's like I'm just gonna say they're in a fight. The helmet got smashed in that stomp, and then from there, Scott doesn't defeat Kang, of course, because in this trailer, Marvel even quotes this saying, starting a new dynasty, which leads to Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. So we know Kang is going to make it out of there, but I'm just going to say it's easier for me to assume that Scott is going to somehow make it out of there as well.
I really hope so. And I think, it's a very, what's the word? A very likely theory that like King is going to come out of this because we have King Dynasty and he is the big bad of this saga. So we know that the objective that he has in this film is most likely he's going to be successful in that. And I guess like the TBD is Ant-Man going to also, make it out? That's really the big question,
Yeah. Did you want to bring up anything, like what was the next topic that you would like to do?
I have quite a bit. So before I forget, because I think this is the thing I'm most likely to kind of skip out on. So we also get introduced to a secondary villain, and so this I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's MODOK or MODOK. MODOK. So are you familiar with this villain?
I've heard of him. I can bring out my encyclopedia right here.
I got it here on the website, but feel free to pull it up. But also, we can kind of piece things together that way. But
I know that honestly, I don't know anything about the character, but the one thing I do know is that he had his own show. I think it was last year or the year before on Hulu. I just never got into it.
Oh no way! Actually, did not know that. So it's funny. Actually, I am pulling up his thing, and the first thing that came up is the Hulu thing. So I think that's kind of funny, but. So I've seen this character in my, interactions with the comics, but nothing too crazy. But so this is from the Marvel database. So this is George Tarleton from Earth 616, aka MODOK, however you said it, stands for mental organism designed only for killing. So that's like the description or breakdown of his name. And I'm trying to see if I can get okay. So I'm just going to read the top portion, but several accounts exist that discuss George Tarleton's life before becoming MODOK. In one, George Tarleton was a skilled technician from Erie, Pennsylvania. The second, as recounted by his father, Alvin, said that George lacked intelligence and was hired as a janitor for AIM. A third saw him as a smart man hired by the U.S. Army for weapons research who took the samples collected from the monster of Sin Kong for study. So it seems like in terms of the origin story, there's a lot of different adaptations from it. But he's very recognizable, even for me, who actually isn't too familiar with him in the comics, apart from just minor mentions. But it seems like he's going to play a secondary villain in this film, and so that's kind of cool. I think that's cool that we're getting an additional villain here.
But the coolness is more so, I think, the fact that it's a callback, and I like that they're finally starting to tie up some loose ends from the first Ant-Man, because honestly, I didn't even think that to be a loose end. I thought the idea of I'm gonna bring up the character here, Darren Cross, aka Yellow Jacket, right? The only loose end that I got from Ant-Man was before the Pym building exploded, the people that was trying to buy his particle ended up leaving with a few vials of it, and we never really knew what happened to it. Now, what's interesting is they're not really touching that here in this movie, but we already have confirmation on IMDb that Yellow Jacket is in this film, and he is in fact pretty much this MODOK character. And at first I didn't see this image, like the image of them walking with Kang and then MODOK in the background. I didn't see a face until the internet pointed it out, and they said somehow in, I guess, the shrinkage from whatever Scott did to him in the first movie turned him into this creature, this head of a creature with tiny arms and tiny legs. So I thought that to be really interesting.
That is honestly so cool. And I think it's great whenever you get those loose ends tied up. And I think also with everything that we've kind of criticized Marvel about, I think that's one of the biggest things is that there's a little bit too many loose ends, and we kind of question their competence and be able to tie them all up by the end of the saga.
Right.
So I think this is very great. I think it's a step in the right direction, something I greatly appreciate. And I think that this is a cool character to kind of rewrite the origin in this way, because it seems like the origin in the comics is very inconsistent. So they can kind of do what they want. And I love that they took this as an opportunity to bring back an old villain and kind of tie it back to the present. And I think this is going to be really cool. And it would make sense for him to be on Kang's side because he's got beef with Ant-Man.
For some reason, I don't know why, like just when I was younger, I think the first time I saw the MODOK character, I maybe confused him with, like, do you know the character on Ninja Turtles that's just like a brain that controls like a robot, basically? Have you ever seen that before?
I actually don't know. And I watched like the TV shows, I've watched the movies, and I just can't recall.
Well, in the movie, the live actions that came out years ago, it was in the second one, and he was the main villain there. He was just like a brain, I think, inside of a robot. But anywho, that's who I thought. Honestly, I got confused with MODOK, and that was like a long time ago. But seeing him now, he just looks like a weird creature. Now, if people were hating on the CG of She-Hulk, I'm just gonna say I may be the first just looking at it, especially at the trailer and seeing him here. I don't know how I like this big face CG wise. If anything, Marvel, Kevin, Feige, here's a moment right here. Listen, I need you to maybe clean that up. I know we have, what's today, the 12th? We have a little over a month. If you could just make MODOK maybe look a little better, or maybe I just need to see him in action in the movie. But either way, first impression, I think, if anything, could look a little cleaner.
See, and we know that they sometimes push out trailers before like the final product, so you may be right. A comment that I saw and I thought it was really funny is someone saying like, see, Marvel's CGI is starting to look like Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And I think this is kind of an example, because I just think because so much of this is CGI, like the world and everything, it reminded me of that. Not in a bad way. It's still looking pretty damn good.
I heard that because someone put a comparison to George Lopez, like, because in that it was either Shark Girl or Shark whatever movie that was, or it was Spy Kids. George Lopez was a villain, and it was pretty much a face on the screen of a robot. So that's where they were kind of comparing it, and I was like, I can kind of see what they were doing with that.
Oh my goodness. So it's like, yes, because the comparison was more so just in the general CGI, like especially with like the setting and exterior. But it's so funny you say that because like the George Lopez villain, which is from Shark Boy and Lava Girl, looks so much like MODOK.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just does. I think that's even more. Even more.
Definitely.
Not that I like to hate on like the CGI like department, just because the special effects, just because we know they already have so much to deal with. But I hope it does look a little bit better once it gets released.
Listen, as far as the CGI VFX department of Marvel Studios, just after She-Hulk and them talking the reason why they can't make her green in that one Kevin scene, I can imagine they were either busy, like they made the joke of them being busy working on Wakanda Forever, but in actuality, this whole entire movie is going to be, I'm going to say a majority of it's going to be in the quantum realm. So everything is CG. There may be like an intro to where they're out in the world, but I'm going to say the whole movie is down there. So they have their work cut out for them in terms of visual effects. And if it's just the MODOK where it's showing his face to where it looks a little off, okay. Because the MODOK that they show later that actually has him suited up with his mask on and his eyes lit up, that actually looks dope. So I'm not mad at that.
And I think on that note, I think you're totally right. I feel like once we make it into the quantum realm, I feel like the entire film from there is just going to be in the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of talking about how they kind of get sucked in there. So in this trailer, we hear Cassie say, "This is all my fault." Mm-hmm. And kind of taking it back to the first trailer, we do see that Cassie's the one who introduced the object that allows them to enter into the quantum realm. We saw Janet Van Dyne really get freaked out, which, you know, she seems to have had a prior encounter with King, and we're going to learn what that's all about. Hopefully, you know, not in the trailer, but hopefully to film instead, because I don't want to see too much in the trailers like we talked about. But I'm very excited to see Cassie play like a more active role in this case, because we don't know her as like a you know, in her, how do I describe it? In her teens, her adolescence. Right. Just because the last time we saw her, she was so little, and the last time we did see her, she was like, "I want to be your partner in crime," you know, like to her dad. And so we're definitely gonna see her play that role here, because she becomes like a wasp, you know. And so, it's I really liked being able to see Cassie in that light, and then this second trailer, you know, she obviously feels responsible for the events that are about to happen. And there's also this scene where we see Cassie get pulled away from Scott. And I think that's just one of the like really emotional scenes that I kind of talked about. So it's, I really, so far what I've seen, I'm just really loving it.
So just just trying to backtrack in terms of them going into the quantum realm, right? And just to kind of mix match the trailers. Say we have the idea that what's the daughter's name again? Cassie.
Cassie.
She made a device that was supposed to be a beacon, but ended up sending them into the quantum realm. But the main thing that we didn't really get too much from in this trailer was what Janet Van Dyne actually knows of Kang. Yes, she actually quoted and said he has the ability to, I guess, change timelines or whatnot. I forgot what it was verbatim, but we don't know what she knows for sure at this point, because as of right now, she just came out of there, and in these trailers, it just looks like she's not trying to go back.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that's still a mystery, and I hope it does stay a mystery until we get to the film itself. But yeah, I'm like super intrigued to find out what that is because we genuinely don't know very much about Janet Van Dyne's time in the quantum realm, and it's like multiple like years,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 decades kind of, and that's a lot of time. So we're definitely gonna get to kind of piece that together. And yeah, like you can tell from the first trailer, you see it again in this trailer, that she's genuinely terrified and she's scared.
Yeah, definitely. And the one person that we didn't get to see much of was the OG Ant Man. What's his name?
Hank Pym.
Hank Pym. We may have seen him with Janet briefly, but that is it. So, if we were to go dark, I would think if anybody were to take an L, he may be that guy because he's like real life. He's getting up there in age. You know what I'm saying? And then honestly, he could just be like kind of tired. He's like, I loved it. Like I've done 2.5 movies. I would say half just because he made that cameo in Endgame. But either way, he could just be on some. I think I'm good on these Marvel, on this Marvel world.
I feel like someone's gonna take an L in this film. I feel like it would make sense too, especially because it is more of a serious film for
Mm-hmm.
Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that would be like a reasonable candidate. I really don't want to say it's Scott Lang. I really want to see him, hopefully go up against Kang again in the multiversal war,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm excited. And you're right, we didn't really get too much of Hank Pym in this trailer. I think the only shot that I can think of is when he's with Janet, Cassie, Hope, and Scott right before they get sucked into the quantum realm, and they just all look very serious and terrified. Super dramatic lighting, and so it just that's the only shot I can really think of Hank Pym being in this trailer.
So say I have two instances of what I would like to call a segment called the blame game. We're gonna get into the first one now. The last one I will go towards the end. But in terms of this segment of the blame game, I'm going to blame everything in terms of the events of this movie on Hank Pym. Okay, he is the one who created the Pym particle. He's the one who made it possible to go subatomic. And if anything, with his tech from whatever time he's from, it has, I'm gonna say, quote unquote, advanced to the point to where somehow Kang got on this and somehow ended up over here. So this first part, this segment, I would blame on Hank, and that's the reason why we're not seeing much. And he could honestly fall into that feeling guilt for doing this, and this be the reason why, let's say, he makes an out for Scott, and he has to stay behind to kind of hold off Kang or something like that. I can see that happening.
I love how you're blaming Hank for all of this. I feel like it's like blaming the guy who invented the wheel
Mm-hmm.
for tanks and being like, you know what, this guy's responsible for all the wars
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Definitely.
I know, I think it's funny. I'll take it. But there was like, okay, so obviously this is kind of another segue into the multiverse speech,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we do get the quote from Janet Van Dyne saying that rewriting existence and shattering of timelines. And we do get like a Scott double, and this trailer does end with Scott like trying to get out of a mountain
Mm-hmm.
of ant men, and so we're going to get a taste of like, I guess, multiversal madness like scattered in this film, which I think is so appropriate, because the last time we saw a variant of Kang was in Loki. We know that's all about the timeline, TVA, multiverses, and things like that. And so it's great that we're going to get more of that multiversal conversation here, since I feel like there was a lot of it lacking in Multiverse of Madness.
There are theories out there from multiple sources that are kind of almost saying the same thing from what I'm seeing on YouTube. Say with Scott being able to, I guess, to replicate himself. A lot of people are saying that is quote unquote chaos magic and has to deal with Scarlet Witch in the Darkhold. Like somehow she made her way into this conversation, and they went clip for clip just to kind of bring up. It's like, hey, you see, there's something red in the background, red crystals, and that was like, all right, y'all are reaching. I don't know, but if that's possible, I guess that's kind of cool because there is an instance to where we're just going to assume that that wasn't the last of the Scarlet Witch. So if it's that type of magic, I'm not going to say that she's in this movie, but in some way, shape, or form, to where it's that type of magic for Scott to do what he's doing and replicating himself, I think that to be pretty interesting in how they're kind of bringing that together and in this multiversal conversation.
I love how we're back to like the Mephisto theories.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like things like that with the Scarlet Witch. We're definitely not done with the Scarlet Witch. I think they are actually working on a solo project with her, which I'm all about. I can't get enough of her. And what was I gonna mention? Okay. So again, going back to this code, and the reason I keep going back to it is just because I feel like it's so short, but it gives us a lot. So she mentions rewriting existence, and I feel like that gives me a similar feel to say what the Reality Stone is capable of doing. And Thanos used that Reality Stone to basically shred Drax and cube up Mantis. And in this trailer, we actually see Scott get, string cheese shredded, kind of like Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness, but it's very similar. So it's like it's almost like we're seeing Kang have the powers of having like the Time Stone, but also like the Reality Stone, and I'm just using those because I think it's very comparable, and there are things that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that we're seeing things that have like reminiscence of that, you know?
Here's my theory with Kang the Conqueror as a character, because so far we've been introduced to him as a quote unquote genius that's gone through the multiversal battle, and there's if anything, he is the main antagonist to either shape a timeline, keep a timeline with the TVA, and do whatever he wants at his free will. Even in the comic, he was just time traveling, doing whatever just to conquer, basically. But as far as this Kang that we're getting, because I'm going to assume like it's going to follow the same storyline of him coming from the, let's say, 3000. So like he comes from the future. He is a descendant of Mr. Fantastic, correct?
There's definitely like a bloodline connection. I feel like every time I read it, I forget like probably 10 minutes after.
So
Yeah.
I think he is, because I think his actual name, maybe last name, maybe Richards or whatnot. But say from the time that he comes, on top of mastering technology, I think something like this, when it comes down to being in the quantum realm, being able to create these portals that we're seeing and all this, I think he's been able to somehow master some of the powers of the Infinity Stones, and it could have been scientifically. He found a way to maybe, if anything, replicate the Reality Stone and do stuff to shred huge giant Scott Lang, and then maybe use the science of the Space Stone to create portals or anything like that. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of theories out there that I find interesting, but I think it makes sense just because he's from the future and he can take the time to really understand the science behind these reality, or not reality stones, but these Infinity Stones. How do you feel about that?
See, I don't know if the Infinity Stones are going to have so much of an active role in that way. But I think that they're a really good. I think they're really good to kind of compare to the powers that we're seeing, since they're so familiar for a lot of us. And you can definitely see that, like, like especially with, like I said, the reality and the time stone. I feel like those are abilities we haven't seen a character wield without the stones,
Mhm.
except for potentially Miss Marvel, but that is TBD. So that obviously is like an enhanced power in and of itself, because Thanos couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Um, I think I have a question for you. When it comes down to, uh, nope, lost it. Never mind. Forget it. Forget it.
Wow,
It'll
that
come
was
to me. It'll come to me.
so a comparison I kind of wanted to make that I kind of thought of as we were discussing it is so we talked about how Scott lost a lot of time with Cassie
Mhm.
before and after the snap, but someone we haven't really spoken too much about in that same kind of sentence is Janet Van Dyne. Janet Van Dyne lost basically like 2 decades of her daughter's life, and that's actually something I haven't really put much thought into. And it's funny because we're having this whole conversation about Scott and Cassie, but you can very much have that same conversation about Janet and Hope. And going back to one of the quotes where she says he can give us a second chance, I wonder if part of that deal or promise is for her to maybe be in a timeline where she gets to actually be with her daughter in those years that she missed out, just like maybe the deal for Scott is for him to get that time back with Cassie.
You saying this right now, it actually sparked something. And I found the question that I had initially, but just to kind of continue with what you're saying, one thing that I really don't like as of right now is Janet Van Dyne's story. Just because of the idea of her being stuck in the quantum realm, right? She has been in there for I don't know how many years, 20 or 30 years, right? And we already have a general idea of time being different in the quantum realm versus in the real world. Scott spent 5 hours in there but lost 5 years. So with that math, should have only lost 20 to 30 hours and not 20 to 30 years. And somehow she aged to the point to where she's in similar age range of Hank Pym. So I like you saying that just now. It's like, wait a second. In terms of the quantum realm, she shouldn't have aged that much.
See, okay, I think there's two ways that you can look at that. So one would definitely be like what you're saying, and that is like the ratio, and so then this would be considered an inconsistency. However, keep in mind what they say is time works differently in the quantum realm. There's not a finite, I think, definition of what that means. We know what that meant for Scott, but maybe it's not the same for everyone's experience. Like, and so you could be right. This could be an inconsistency, or it's not um finite, like the way that time works differently in the quantum realm, it's not necessarily like clearly defined, you know what I mean?
I hear you. I don't know. Just because that theory just kind of threw me through a loop right
You just
now.
love calling out inconsistencies, but something, like I said, you may be totally right.
um, as far as my question that I do want to bring back up, just because it kind of follows along into the next topic, which right now I want to kind of bring up the Kang army. The first image I just want to pull up is you see a giant Ant-Man surrounded by Kang ships, but I do want to just kind of bring up this army of, I would assume them to be Kang droids. Would you say the same?
I would describe him like that, kind of like the way Ultron has like his own little army of Ultrons.
Right. So say as far as this idea of the multiversal saga, right? When it comes down to how Kang tries to take over the multiverse, I'm assuming that he's going to have to send this army throughout the multiverse to try and conquer and take over. For him to do this, to travel to different multiverses, do you think he either comes with the tech on his own, or somehow he gets his hands on America for Multiverse of Madness?
From what I understand, like I think in the future either like builds the technology to be able to go back in time, and then these events happen for him in the past, right, which is our present, if you will. And I think kind of leaning to one of the theories you had earlier, maybe when he made that jump into our present, his past, something, maybe a different variant of King made him stuck in the quantum realm. Or possibly another theory is that as he traveled to Scott's timeline, right, going back to the past, maybe somehow he got stuck in the quantum realm along the way. His device maybe isn't working anymore. Maybe there's a component missing to his device that will make it work. Maybe that's the thing that Scott's gonna have to get. Of all of this, like, there's a lot of theories to it, and I think it's cool because right now this is the fun time where we know enough that we can start to plant 1,000 theories, and as we get more we can kind of start connecting them. But this is like my favorite period, like when we get projects, is like the point where we don't know all the answers and we all just get to have fun and like share.
When it comes down to America, though, being that she's a quote unquote, I think we mentioned her to be a Nexus being, there's only one in the multiverse. Though she's kind of honing in on her powers in Kamartaj, she definitely has to play a role, especially in this multiversal war that's coming, you know? So I'm curious just to see when she's going to pop up. I know I'm getting off topic today. We're talking about Ant-Man, but she is a part of the multiversal conversation for sure. And I think, if anything, she could be one of the keys to help take Kang down in this traveling through the multiverse.
I mean, 100%. You know, all of this is going to come down to the battlefield of
Secret Wars.
Avengers. Yeah, like the next Avengers movies was just going to come out like in 2025, 2026. I forget the year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we know, I think it's easy to assume that America Chavez is going to have a really big role, considering her power is so significant. And to kind of compare it to King, in that we mentioned his abilities are very similar to the Reality Stone, very similar to the Time Stone. Her powers are very similar to the Space Stone, and I don't believe the Space Stone has the ability to go into a different universe. So her powers would actually exceed the ability of the Space Stone, which is pretty damn cool. So 100% agree that she will most likely be crucial in taking down King.
Correct, because as of right now, I think from Multiverse of Madness, she only had the ability to create portals to go to different universes, but towards the end, she's learning the ways of their magic of the Sorcerer Supreme or whatnot, and then from there, she can make portals to go anywhere, you know? So she's just a multiversal soldier in training right now.
Oh yeah, and you know, we saw when we first saw her, like, I mean, she's very I think doesn't like her powers because obviously it's what drew her away from her family. But we definitely leave her in a space where she's learning from, you know, Kamartaj and everything like that. So I'm excited for whenever we do get to see her again, because I think she's going to be a lot more comfortable in her abilities. I think we're going to see how those abilities are enhanced. And I'm curious to see where we're going to see her next. I will say I am incredibly excited for whatever post-credit, mid-credit scenes we get with this film, because we got a horrible post-credit scene from Doctor Strange, which we were just like appalled with. And Black Panther, you know, it wasn't really appropriate for them to have a post-credit scene that will kind of connect with like bigger parts of you know, Marvel and things like that, just because I think that project was meant to be and serve for something else, and I think it did that beautifully. So I really feel like this film is going to give us some really juicy post-credit scenes, and so that's something I'm like really looking forward to.
Yeah, like say when it comes down to just any type of post-credit scene that we've had, just in Phase 4, there was honestly maybe only a couple that we know that we enjoyed, because in Phase 4, we don't have to really mention the Black Widow one, but Shang-Chi, we know it ends with the beacon. That was decent. Eternals, do you remember Eternals, their post-credit scene off the top of your head?
Yeah, so the Eternals post-credit scenes were actually pretty amazing, because we got the first one, which gave us a very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque vibe, and we get Angela, yeah, Angelina Jolie's character meeting with Harry Styles' character, and so that's kind of setting up, I think, the next part of like the eternal storyline. And then we also get the one with Jon Snow, Kit Harington, meeting Blade.
Yeah. So with that and Spider-Man No Way Home, his post-credit scene was
I don't remember. I think was it just the hot dog guy? Is that what it was?
The hot dog guy?
The
Or
one who was supposed to play Doctor Strange in the original trilogy with Tobey Maguire. What is his name?
that was Multiverse of Madness. That was the pizza ball guy.
He was in Multiverse of Madness. I thought it was in.
Because America was eating the free pizza balls.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. Okay, that's where I'm getting it mixed up. What was the post-credit scene then for No Way Home?
All I remember is there's only been a couple movies in this phase 4, that they didn't give us a credit scene. I think I waited to the very end, and I was kind of disappointed they didn't really show anything. I think Wakanda Forever was one of them, and Doctor Strange, we were just kind of disappointed with the 2 post-credit scenes that we got there. So say, kind of moving forward now into a movie like this, because right now I think this is maybe the first post-credit that we're getting in this saga. So why not? We need something that's going to lead us on into the rest of this phase, being that Kang is going to survive. So I can see something post-credit wise related to Kang, and either him showing that he's still there or him actually making
Like Loki, because we haven't had that. I think that'd be kind of cool to start connecting the movies and the shows in that way. And just to fill in the blank, because it was going to bother me if I didn't look it up. So for No Way Home, we got the scene with Eddie Brock and Venom, right? So like basically this whole time he's been in like Mexico asking a bartender what the heck is going on, and by the time that he's like filled in on the all the information, the events of Endgame have basically wrapped up, and then he gets sent back home. But there's a tiny piece of Venom that gets left behind, which we can assume is going to connect with somebody. It's a symbiote, we know what they do.
Well, that's still a part of it's still a part of Venom. So Venom liked the idea, like I think Venom's in love with Peter Parker. So somehow that is going to make its way to Peter Parker somehow, I think.
Well, keep in mind, Flash also has storylines where he has a symbiote as well. So there's a couple options there. But you have to keep this in mind. When Venom left a piece behind of a symbiote, but then that got connected with what's his name, the character who ends up becoming Carnage. That's like a son of Venom. So I think it wouldn't be Venom, it would be a son of Venom.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how that would work. But it's so that was one of them. And then we also got the first trailer for Multiverse of Madness. So that was what we got for No Way Home.
True. So yeah, they have to start this phase off with a bang in terms of post-credit scene.
100%. And I'm really excited and looking forward to it because I didn't expect us to get anything in Black Panther that would pull us forward in like this saga. So I'm excited because I really think this is going to be the one. And a lot of people have been waiting for it. I feel like Shang-Chi was also a really good post-credit scene to kind of push the story forward because we got Captain Marvel, we got Bruce, and then we also got Wong, and I thought that was really cool. We got mentions of a beacon, which gave us similar like flavors to the what is it called? The beacon that was sending to like Captain Marvel and stuff like that. So it's I'm excited for this saga to kind of start to build up because phase 1 we really got a lot of loose threads like we mentioned, and I really want to start kind of getting those weave together.
Do you think that Kang is a puppet in this movie, and really the puppet master is MODOK? Because I think if anything, we know that Darren, he has the thing against Scott Lang, So if anything, I can see that being part of the story as well.
Sure. I do feel like Kang, being that we know he's the big bad of this saga, I feel like that's going to be actually the like reverse role, that he's the puppet master who saw an opportunity to use the Yellow Jacket for his own purpose, being that they have a common ground that they're going to be going up against Ant-Man. So I think that's the more likely scenario, but you never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Say, one thing I do want to kind of bring up is like I have now a picture of, I think it was one of the last shots that we get from Kang. I call it the Kang Blast, where he's just shooting out some blue beams out of his suit. And I think I want to kind of talk about Kang's tech briefly, because we finally get to see, because initially first trailer we see his face talking to Scott Lang, but here we do get the comic book accurate kind of blue face shield. Somehow he has blue eyes, and now he's shooting out blue beams that's almost kind of reminiscent of Tony Stark's Iron Man suit. So when it comes down to his tech, do you think it's just an advancement of Tony Stark's tech? What do you think?
I feel like maybe that's like a good way to compare it or have that discussion because obviously he's from the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like maybe Iron Man was kind of like the baseline for now this very enhanced suit. I feel like the beams also that he has in his arms remind me a lot of Captain Marvel
Mm-hmm.
and like how she has that power and her eyes glow too, so comparison there. What else was I gonna say though? Oh, and also like we know that in the comics, Kang buys out Avengers Tower and then it becomes Kang Tower,
Mm-hmm.
Kang whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like there's a connection between Iron Man and him in that way. So I'm wondering if there's more to it than just that, and maybe that applies to the technology as well. To your point.
The only thing that people are kind of pointing out in terms of the connection with Iron Man in terms of this technology, some people are saying that when it comes down to why his eyes are blue is just because he did something surgically to himself to control any type of tech around him, and that could be reminiscent of how in Iron Man 3 Tony Stark did have kind of like a head contraption that can control his suits. So Kang could probably do that, especially with his droid army that he's going to send out to the multiverse. I'm assuming he has something similar, maybe a little bit more advanced for sure. And then, yeah, I agree. Like, I like the point that you brought up that Miss Marvel has similar powers, but I think her powers come from within, to where his, I believe, is of the suit itself.
Yeah, and I like the theory you're kind of putting out that it's something similar to how Tony basically embedded himself with the suit and he can kind of just bring it out within him, which I think is cool. And I feel like that makes so much more, or I feel like that does make a lot of sense, and that Kang just has a significantly more advanced version of that kind of technology. And maybe like microtech is kind of something that is involved in that. But also, I think being in the quantum realm gives him some abilities as well because that's what we saw with Janet Van Dyne. So I wonder if it's a combination of all of those things that give him his abilities. But I think that um, it's it's kind of I don't know. I'm excited to finally see Kang the Conqueror. Like I'm very excited about it. I feel like he looks it's very intimidating in this film because obviously like he's really challenging everything that Scott like holds dear and loves, So it's I'm very excited for this initial really true introduction of Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, definitely. Just when it comes down to now phase 5, it's giving us something to actually look forward to, not only with just this movie, but now we know its relation to Loki, and then of course the connection to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Just because I think from what I'm reading, people are saying that as of right now, what Kang is, his mission is to eliminate all of the multiverse, so there's a single one. And some verbiage that I kind of heard in that is he's kind of causing these quote unquote incursions, and we heard about that in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and it ended with him saying, "Oh, let me pull out my third eye and let's go holler at this incursion real quick." But say if Kang is in fact causing a lot of these incursions, that's how we're tying a lot of these movie plot lines together. And then if it comes down to the point to where if it's tech versus magic, I think that'd be a pretty dope battle eventually if we see him versus Doctor Strange, because as of right now we're seeing tech versus tech with him and Scott Lang, but I can see him versus some form of magic, if not Doctor Strange, him versus Wong. Wong would be, I think, a formidable opponent, and if anything, I think that'd be pretty fun to watch.
I think so too. I think so too. I think there's a lot to kind of unpack with this trailer, and I'm like very much like you said at the beginning of the episode of our episode is that I'm just really excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I said, I do really enjoy that they gave us something more traditional with the initial trailer, and here we're kind of getting something that's a little bit different for Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how it's very well suited with the storyline. I'm excited to see this more serious tone for Scott.
Definitely. Was there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think we kind of went over all the points that I had. Overall, I feel like there was so much to discuss when it came to this trailer. But I'm good on my end. How about you?
I'm actually gonna go into my second part of my segment, the blame game part two.
Oh Lord, yes. Let's hear it.
All right, ladies and gents, we have a character I just pulled up from the Eternals. His name is Fastos, right? And I love this guy as an actor, but say his character as an Eternal is the reason for all of the technological advancements in human history. So everything going on right now, PIM particles, anything technological, quantum, whatever. I'm gonna put the blame on him. Initially, I put it on Hank Pym, but I'm gonna say as of right now, it comes from this guy.
The man who invented the wheel.
Exactly. Yep.
I love it. I mean, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's so funny because I don't know. I like the line of thinking that you're having because I feel like you can always like I feel like you can use that to just redirect blame in any scenario. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like
Well, it's
yeah,
not like say there is something that is going to have to pull the Eternals back into the conversation, you know? And not to say that this is going to be it, but I think just that theory alone, it makes sense to where he felt terrible about humans finding out about the hydrogen bomb and then how they make use of it. So imagine how he feels now the multiverse fallen apart due to technology that was built off of, let's say, his ideals.
yeah, and actually, I like that you bring it up in the conversation because earlier you mentioned as we're kind of talking about Kang's abilities, seeing it as kind of building off of Iron Man's success with the Iron Man suits and also like the microtech and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned like it seems like from within now he's able to wield or like kind of create different or just control technology. And I feel like that very much aligns with Faustos'
Mm-hmm.
ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you did bring him up because I think there's a couple things you can compare with that. Like their powers, if say that is the origin or the basis of King's powers, that would make them actually very similar.
Man, who's to say that Fastos here, I'm just going to throw out, say later on in time, maybe changed teams, then eventually had a seed that ended up having another seed with the Richard bloodline, and then somehow that's how we get some color in the Reed
Oh,
Richards bloodline.
oh my God. I'm okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take
Descendant.
I'll
Yep.
take
Kang
it.
is a descendant of Reed Richards and Fastos. There it is. I said it first right here on the Comic
There we
Cinematic
go.
Universe.
There we go. I love it because I think there's so many comparisons to make, with the conversation of the Infinity Stones, Faustos. And I think it's like a good opportunity to start to bring in conversations that were started in other projects. I think, Loki's going to be super, we can easily kind of pin that that's going to have a little bit of a mention here in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like this film, I think I'm excited and I'm putting a lot of weight on it and expectations, so if I'm disappointed, that's on me, but it's I'm honestly really looking forward to it. And I actually like didn't realize how close it is until I was watching the trailer, and in the middle says like February.
Mm-hmm. It's right there. It's right. It's next month.
It's next month, and like
4 days away.
it like didn't really absorb for me. I think because I'm still in like 2022 mode, so like 2023 sounds like a year away, and so I didn't realize how close it was.
Yeah, yeah. I think when did we got our the first trailer when maybe November, possibly December.
I think December.
So, them kind of making these announcements, especially in the last few years, I think they like I think they've actually started to trend on maybe releasing trailers honestly a few months before the project drops, because I think I remember Thor: Love and Thunder, that trailer maybe coming out like 4 months before the actual movie came out, 3 or 4 months. So it goes by fast now. Again, this may fall back into the quality versus quantity. Maybe they need to slow it down, but uh, as far as overall, I'm excited for Ant-Man Quantumania background kind of being creepy. But anywho,
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I
Yeah, I feel like I can say that with confidence. I mean, just looking at what the TVA established, which is that the Infinity Stones don't really have much power when you look into the multiverse
mhm,
itself. I feel like that definitely sets a precedent that Kang is going to be a like next level villain trumping Thanos, you know,
mhm,
and really, really challenging the Avengers, you know, and I think in a way that um, you know, surpasses what Thanos did. And Thanos really hit us hard, you know, with like Infinity War being really the first film to showcase like the superheroes losing.
mhm.
And so I can only imagine what's going to happen once we start to see things like that from Kang and we see it kind of affecting the greater part of like the MCU and different characters from different films and things like that.
Definitely. So I'm happy that Marvel is stepping it up in the villain department, and especially with this trailer, they stepped it up with this trailer just because I think this is what is needed, especially right now. Yes, they gave us the first trailer, which is a little bit more lighthearted, but like Phase 4, we kind of ended with lighthearted with Miss Marvel, with She Hulk, with was there was there another one that's kind of on the lighthearted side? Either way, Wakanda Forever kind of ended a little bit on the darker side, which is fine. But now we're starting off with a little bit more of a serious note, and I think that's like we needed to kind of even out. So I think this is kind of evening us out on the spectrum of bringing us back to the serious note of the actual stakes that are at play here in this multiversal saga.
Yeah, completely agree. And I do like that we're starting off this saga with a familiar character, especially because you know we got introduced with a lot of people in this first phase, and I think bringing it back to like a familiar face is a great way to start this off, and a good way to kind of build off from as we go forward. Because I think this is going to be a phase that we really start to connect teams, connect characters, and kind of, in my hope, start kind of braiding out these loose ends to kind of lead into the battlefield of you know King Dynasty and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to this.
All right, so I think I want to end with a question. In terms of it's not necessarily a prediction; it's more so, what are your thoughts when it comes down to Kang? Do you think there's going to be any reference of the TVA being that Loki ended with basically a Kang statue at that TVA?
I definitely expect there to be a TVA mention, even if it is ever so briefly, because the catalyst to these events are the events of the TVA, or I'm sorry, are the events of Loki and how it affected the TVA. So I do anticipate that to be a conversation, or maybe like a mention of just the was this He Who Remains,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's I feel like that would be kind of cool even because um the death of He Who Remains is part of that catalyst, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
It's just wild to me to think now, if anything, um, Kang, he has a bot army that can probably expand across the multiverse to conquer. But then on the other hand, he also has the policing force of the TVA just to make sure things go his way. So as of right now, he is in full control of anything and everything time related.
I mean, I would even expand that monopoly to um the multiverse because of the TVA,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um like I think that wow. I don't know how the Avengers are gonna do it.
Mhm.
It's yeah. This is gonna be the fight. This is gonna. I'm just like wowed by like how much power Kang now has, and how, and also like I'm curious to know what's missing, because like he's hiring Scott for something, and I'm assuming maybe if it's along the lines of the technology that brought him into the past, uh, potentially like that technology was faulty and got stuck in the quantum realm, and now he just needs that final component to get into his next step, because like you said, he's got the army, he's got the robots, he's got all of that, but now he just needs the key to open the door to the different eras of the multiverse so he can clean house.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of this is going way beyond into maybe phase 6 or whatnot. I think me kind of piggybacking off of talking about magic kind of playing a factor versus tech. I think when it comes down to this variant of Kang, right? Let's say if he was trapped in the quantum realm by the other variant, He Who Remains. From what we know of Loki, He Who Remains was able to create the one timeline by like put them all together by pretty much controlling that ghost for smoke dog or whatever it's called or whatnot. So I wouldn't be surprised if later on down the line, being that we now know that Loki has the same ability that Sylvie had to cast whatever spell that was, to possibly use that against this variant of Kang.
Yeah, I can definitely see that coming up, and I think that aligns with just seeing different elements from the TVA, from Loki, kind of blending into this film.
Right. Like something just I think it's starting to add up. Like phase 4, yes, they introduced us to all of these brand new concepts, but now it's a matter of how are we going to use these concepts to take down this conqueror in Secret Wars. So I see it happening. I think I'm done with the Ant-Man trailer. I think I have one more thing I wanted to bring up before we get out of here. What is your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on people saying that the robot in the Indian Ocean is the source of adamantium?
The robot in the Indian Ocean is the source of adamantium. I'm not a fan of that theory, because I feel like that goes against kind of the way we understand adamantium to be birthed from, which is vibranium. So yeah, I can't really align to that theory. Like I think people want to revisit the whole.
Everything I got. So, um, we will be back next week, next Friday, correct?
Yes.
No parties, no
I
events.
don't think so. No, I think we're all good.
Oh, speaking of parties and events, another reason why I wanted to get you your Christmas slash birthday gift is because we did get the invite to go to the karaoke night. It's just that we actually did have an emergency and we had to help a friend out. So sorry we missed that, and I never got a chance to kind of bring it around. So I was like, okay, let me actually stop by and give the Christmas birthday gift.
I appreciate it. I wish I was able to like come down, but yeah, I was like I'm in session, so I couldn't make my way.
Yeah,
But
it's all good.
no, I greatly appreciate it. I opened it and I was just like, I love this so much. I'm telling you, this has been such a great week. I've been getting like so many presents, and I just feel very special. It's been great, and thank you. I really appreciate it. I think it's like I feel very seen.
No worries. When I saw Selena Kyle, I was like, she is gonna love that.
I'm like so happy. It's at the front of like my Funko Pop mantle, which you've seen.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, this has been another episode of the Comic Cinematic Universe. Again, we won't be on tomorrow. Today was more so a special edition, but we will be back next Friday, same time, same network. And until next time, Grace, you have a great weekend. Enjoy your eventful weekend, and everybody else, enjoy your weekend.
All right, guys, that is a wrap. I am Grace. This is Chill. We are the Comic Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace, and we will catch you guys next week.
Later, guys.
Bye.